Thanks, guys, and thanks for having me over here. Thanks to Nick and APAL for the invite. I am just a grower from Hawke's Bay. Cut my teeth working for mum and dad in the family farm when I was a little kid, and decided that wasn't for me. So I left school and ran away from the apple industry. And I've come back into the apple industry with just a slightly different sort of perspective on things. But I did, I guess, earn my stripes when I first got into back into apple growing as an adult by winning a couple of competitions in New Zealand. And what that proved was nothing but the fact that I could grow apples and I could use some machinery and run irrigation systems. But what it didn't do was prove that I could lead people and lead businesses. And so I went on a fair bit of a journey over a number of years of trying to understand the difference and how I needed to operate to start to lead my teams. Certainly in Hawke's Bay, the industry is slightly different to what it is here in Australia, and we're very consolidated and dominated by corporate business structures, so quite vertically integrated even within an apple orchard in terms of the structure. But what I learnt from that was that, yes, I was good at growing fruit, but probably wasn't that good at managing myself, let alone managing other people, and was running around wondering why I was struggling to create success. And I had a very good friend of mine stand me up and say some honest words to me about what he was seeing where I was going wrong. And that created a bit of a journey of self-reflection for me. And I started to reflect on why I was operating the way I was operating. And a lot of that led me back to how I was brought up and how my father operated as a small family farmer. And my father, like many of the growers in the room, did everything. From spraying to tractor driving, supervising at harvest, as well as picking, as well as loading the truck. He'd go home, he'd run payroll, he'd do the GST payments, absolutely everything, end to end within the business. And the reflection that I went through was that wasn't the environment that I was farming in, and I needed to change my approach. So I went on that approach, and largely it was driven by capacity issues. So running around like my father, trying to do everything. Pretty quickly I was heading towards an early grave. I mean, I'm only 40 and I've got a pretty big solar panel on the top, and I contribute a lot of that to my early stressful years of trying to manage in a horticultural environment. And like I said, it was another grower that actually sat me down and said, you got to change or you're going to not be successful and probably end up in a wooden box. And so that sort of got me thinking about what sort of team did I need, and what does team mean? Because, you know, watching my father, he was the pivotal point within the operation. He knew everything, and if somebody in the team needed to do something, they had to go back to Dad to ask him how to do it. What do I need to do? And so it was really constraining for me trying to operate like that with large teams. And so I started to use a bit of an analogy and started to think about not just the sort of team that I was operating in, but the team that I needed to be successful. And everyone loves sports, so I use this quite regularly with my team when we're talking about how we're going to engage on certain things. And from sort of track and field teams that are really not that interdependent on each other, i.e., you know, there's the shot put guy and the track and field guy. Their success is not related to the success of their other teammates. They've got the same logo on the shirt, but they're completely different fields, and there's not a lot of crossover in terms of the drivers of success. All the way down to a rugby or a netball team where every person in the team sort of got their own position. They're very, very clear on what that position does. You know, there's no way you'd want to see a halfback in the front row on a rugby team. So, if you're on the opposition, maybe. So that there is definitely sort of, you know, a big part of the process that I went through to understand what sort of team environment did I need to create success within my operations across the different businesses that I've worked in over the time. And all of this has been a bit of a journey for me. It's sort of taken probably 7 or 8 years to get to this point of understanding teamwork, leadership, and people motivation. But a really big part for me was in 2021, I moved to Craigmore Sustainables, and aligning myself with a company and surrounding myself by people that shared very similar values to me was a key to, I guess, exasperating or speeding up my growth in this space. And so at Craigmore, our vision is kaitiaki, which is essentially leaving things better than you found them. And we've got a little tagline there, growing the best of Aotearoa New Zealand. And one of the things that really appealed to me about that with Craigmore was that was more than just the produce. It was the people, it was the environment, it was our communities. So it was really holistic in its approach, and that definitely appealed to me from a fruit production point of view, fruit being, a real epitome of health. But one of the values that underpins our vision at Craigmore is this one here, which is Piki Ora. And one of the big focuses there for me was empowerment. And if you think about what I've been talking about so far, and my father holding the keys to the kingdom essentially, and everyone having to run to Dad to figure out what to do and how to do it, my father didn't run an empowerment model in his business. And I've decided that is one of the most important pillars to my leadership. And once I've started to go down that journey of empowerment, I've watched the people around me and my team excel, and it's actually created a lot of space in my job. Long and short, and none of my bosses are in the room, it's made my job a whole lot easier. To achieve that, I've had to focus quite heavily on structure, and obviously New Zealand, quite a corporate industry, and there's lots of variations of the structure within the Apple business and how that might work. But the team structure is really important, and one of the things that I laboured on immensely when I put this together was how the communication flowed through my structure and my team, but also what each of those roles within the team did and what they were responsible for. And so the slide up on the screen now is sort of my senior level of people, orchard managers, operations managers, technical managers, and then we step down into sort of an orchard operating team, which is orchard manager, assistant manager, 4 persons, leading hands, spray operators, and orchard hands. And each one of those roles has a very, very specific position description. And I laboured a lot over that. I consulted with other industry partners. I tested. I spoke to my staff that were in those roles about what they thought their role entailed and what their responsibilities and accountabilities were. And then we framed that up. Because one of the most important things that I've learnt through all of this is the importance of clarity around roles, responsibilities, and who's accountable for what. And it doesn't matter what industry I've been in, and I've been in a fair few, including the military, that is the most important thing around getting success and performance out of your team, is your team being clear about what's expected of them. So this structure allows that to happen at each level, and it also allows the communication to flow up and down through those levels pretty well. When we got up into the upper management, we found a position description probably didn't quite have enough detail in it, and it left a little bit of grey area, and grey area is generally where mistakes happen. And so we adopted what's called the RASCI model. And this model just further details exactly what the acronym is. Who's responsible, who's accountable, who they're going to use to support, who their consultancy group is, who they need to consult along the way, and then who they inform. And so what we do across certain tasks within the business, most tasks within the business to be honest, is we have a RASCI that underpins who is responsible for each of the key components of pulling together one of our activities. Generally the accountable person is me, and that's where the buck stops, If it hits the fan, I'm the one that's got to sweep it up and deal with it. So generally in these RASCI sheets, I'm the A, and then it might be one of my orchard managers, or it might be one of my forepersons, or it might be one of my spray operators. What this does is it allows us to empower those people to take control of a project, a situation, an activity out in the orchard, and put some guardrails around that so that they know where they can start and stop in terms of their decision making. This is what that looks like in detail. You can see down the left side, this is a high level strategic one. We've got sort of, labour strategy, analysis and planning for the future. That's big high level stuff. And that generally has, my orchard managers in it, and it has some people capability people in it. And that's the basis of forming the team of who's going to be involved in that project going along for the year. Now, as I said, we do this for a lot of our tasks, and it's particularly prescribed at that foreman level and above. It looks really complicated. Once you get into doing this, they're actually really easy to populate. But again, it really does put the guardrails around who's doing what and what you expect of them. So that was the first part of what Nick asked me to talk about, was building the team. And that took me a little bit to think about. But the next part's probably a little bit more comfortable for me because it's just what we do every day. And that's around process and building process for on-farm success. And New Zealand's no different to you guys. Labour's a challenge. Not only is it expensive, I think they're losing a few brain cells as they're getting younger and they're coming through the gate. So we're having to take really complex situations and break them down into really, really simple strategies or instructions to get through. I think the other side to that is, particularly in Hawke's Bay, horticulture is not what it was. You'll see some videos at the end of my presentation. That property is 180 hectare canopy hectares, and there's 1 million trees on that property, so it's pretty intense, and I need a lot of labour to come through the gate to prune those trees, to thin those trees. And so we went through a process of figuring out how do we take a big complex problem such as thinning or pruning a tree and be able to get anyone that comes through the gate to be able to achieve what we're looking for in that space. And so that starts with asking yourself the question of what does good look like? And that's a really common phrase within my business, what does good look like? And so we go through a bit of a process of asking ourselves, what is a target? What does good look like? That could be a crop load, it could be a bud number, it could be a pack out, it could be whatever metric that you're measuring success by. You need to define that, and you need to also then discuss that and make sure that that is relevant. Is it relevant to your business? Is it in line with industry benchmarks? You then need to develop that idea and figure out how you're going to execute that. And then you need to talk about it. And then you need to get it actually happening out in the orchard. That's where the real magic happens. And so to do that, my business uses data. And it's something that I've heard a lot about over the last week or so being over here in Australia. And I've given this presentation a couple of times through the southern loop that I was travelling on. And data can be scary, but data can also be extremely empowering. And so we count a whole lot of things on our orchard, whether that be how many bins that picker's picking per day, or how many branches that tree's got on it, or how many buds that tree's got on it. And so the sheet that's up on the screen in front of you is a reflection of our pre-pruning bud counts. And what we've captured in that is we've got our pre-pruned bud numbers here and our pre-pruned branch numbers. And pretty much what this is spitting out is what do we need to remove from the tree, if anything at all, to achieve our target bud numbers for our crop load that we're trying to hit. If you look here, you can see that we break our trees down into zones, and those zones are essentially the wire zones up the canopy. So this is a 3D spindle orchard, relatively intense for Hawke's Bay planting. There's 3,906 stems a hectare. And then we break that canopy down into 6 essentially growing zones. And in each of those zones we capture that information, how many branches, how many buds, and then we've got some maths in the back that breaks that back down into how many do we actually need to achieve our crop target. That's using bud to fruit ratios and so forth. What that then produces out is I guess a bit of a strategy sheet for the block. And that strategy sheet really starts to underpin and outline what needs to happen in the canopy, whether that's removing branches, removing buds, whether that's a bit of detail pruning or some summer pruning because we've got a lot of sucker growth. This sheet here also starts to spit out spacing of fruitlets on branches, so it really starts to prescribe what we're doing in each of those fruiting zones. And that there has been quite a magic piece of data and information that we've been able to mine out of our trees. And I guess, I'm not promoting data for data's sake, and you've got to be able to have a use or find a use for that data. Because this set of data that I've just put up on the screen across that 180 hectare orchard cost my business $120,000 to collect in 1 year, one financial year. And it sounds like a lot of money, but when you roll that back to production, and I've misquoted this in my previous speeches, but the 120k over 180 hectares is $666 per hectare. Across my 3,906 trees per hectare, it's literally 0.45 of an apple per tree that I need to recover into a Class 1 carton to recover that cost. By knowing exactly how many buds I've got in my tree and where they are, I can recover that in a blink of an eye. That's not a lot of fruit, not a lot of extra fruit to recover. It's not a lot of maximisation of your canopy to recover half an apple a tree. And so the other thing that I've heard a lot of over here is the cost of production. And sometimes the cost of production can get a little bit blinding. What I've just explained there around the 120k to count all of that data can be eye-watering. I've got a slightly different mentality to that. I'll spend the money to understand how to produce more, which will make me more profitable. And so quite often in New Zealand what you'll see is those that spend a little bit more per hectare or per kilo are generally making more. And this orchard here, fifth leaf Royal Gala, 100 tonne a hectare, no problem. We're doing it with our eyes shut. So it is about maximising the canopy and that potential yield that you can get out of the canopy. And that there's pretty high level data. And part of the challenge is how do you take that, which I expect my orchard managers to know inside out, and get that all the way down to the guys in the field that are doing the work. That's where the magic happens. Because my managers can't prune all of these trees, and I certainly can't. We can't thin them all. So what we do through our onboarding process, and this might resonate with some of you guys in the room that are about to go on your leadership training on Thursday and Friday, is we do a couple of things through our onboarding process, and one of them is called the VARC test. So it's a quick 19 question multi-choice test, and it essentially highlights how you best learn, how you best ingest information, and how you best retain information. And most growers that I've met and most people that are successful in my business are kinesthetic learners. So they're learners that learn by doing, and that there is how we tend to teach. But everybody still has the ability to learn through either visual, audio or reading. So from that we create some pretty intense job boards where we are really outlining to our staff what good looks like, what we expect of them and what we need them to be doing. And so from here, I've just got a couple of short videos to show you guys this happening on my orchard, one of my orchards in real time. These are some videos that pop up on a bi-weekly sort of company-wide meeting that we have just to keep everybody in the business informed. And so we'll get into them because I don't want to keep this from your lunch, but just be mindful of the volume. Mr. Mike man down the back.
Craigmore whānau and welcome to Spring Hill. So we finally have some fantastic weather at Spring Hill. It has been horrible for the past few weeks, really feeling for our pruners and tree trainers who have been having like their fingers almost fall off in the cold. So while it is a beautiful day, I've come out and I'm going to show you around Spring Hill. Obviously we've got pruning going on at the moment, we have tree training going on, we have the sweeper going, so let's come take a look. Of the 136 hectares we have here at Spring Hill, we have just completed over 75% of all the pruning. We just have our rocket variety to go.
Hi, my name's Nicole. I'm a foreperson here at Spring Hill. I'll just run you through sort of our daily process of how we get these boys up and running that are pruning in our block at the moment. So in the morning, every morning, we'll get them together as a team and they'll come in and have a look at this board here and we'll go through it with our supervisor as well. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. So that's the process the boys use when they're pruning a tree. So to follow that, we've got 1 and photos up here. And we've got 2 and 3 and 4, just to keep it nice and simple for them. Matching that up to their job description or job sheet, which is over here. And that just goes through everything that's in the photos, but in a bit more detail.
My name's Michaela and I work at Spring Hill Horticulture. I'm one of the supervisors here. Steps we go through is taking out the choking points first, then going with the forks, the uprights and the underneaths, and then just spacing out the branches. So we also paint our cuts so that the disease and infections don't get into the tree, like fire blight and canker and all that.
So that lady, Michaela there, she has been working for me for now 3 years. When that video was taken, she'd been with me for 1 year. She didn't need to have a degree in horticulture to supervise a team. She just needed to be able to police those 4 simple instructions.
Kia ora Craigmore whānau and welcome to Spring Hill. We are thinning at the moment, which means we are taking all of the little apples from the trees. We have chemical thinned, so we've been doing lots of spraying to try get the number of apples down, so our hand thinning costs are right down. We have almost 150 RACs on site. There's a big process around hand thinning. We have our job boards as usual. We've got some new innovative ideas this year to make sure the apples are the right size that we're picking up. So come with me and we'll take a look.
Hi, I'm Keith, Assistant Manager at Craigmore. So we're just assessing a thinning strategy for breeze, and we've sent in a time trial, thinned bays, and to see how long it takes to get it to our ultimate number that we want to hold. And now I'm trying to gather photo footage to put on our boards to be able to deliver the message to the thinning teams. So what we're looking for is, in this block, is all sites will be doubles. So we're trying to assess what good looks like, so we can take some example photos. So we're going to always look at keeping the king fruit, who's been the largest, and then the next best. So we'll have 2 remaining fruit held at each site, and where there's an example like so, these 2 will end up being a single due to the fact that there's such poor quality fruit around them. Same here, and eliminating all these smalls around us. So the strategy is to obviously leave the stalks remaining as an example to show the point that that's how you thin correctly, and if the stalks are pulled, you generally find that the spurs come with it, which is next year's crop.
My name's Etana. I'm one of the 4 persons at Spring Hill, and I'm in charge of our supervisors and their teams to get them up to scratch and up and running on how we want them to thin this season. And one way we do that is we use this job board that outlines all of our focus points that we want them to follow. So yeah, quite a good description on health and safety considerations here. And also we have our job or recipe we want them to follow, and any of our KPIs that we need them to follow. Okay. We use some of these photos here as well to help aid with the job, and hopefully get a better understanding of what we need. And what we have here is our 4 steps, our techniques. our placement and recipe and defects that entails the whole job of thinning.
So the first gentleman you saw in that video, Keith, 2021, he was running a supermarket. He came to me with no horticultural experience. And Etina has 25 years experience and has moved up since he's been with me from a orchard hand into a foreman's role. And so what I'm trying to demonstrate there is as I work down through those layers, the instructions and decision making is appropriate for that level of skill. And it's pretty easy when you can start to give someone some numbers, right? You need to go out to the tree, I want 5 apples per branch, go and do some counting. So it's really starting to take a 3D structure and put it into a bit of prescription horticulture. I am running out of time and I certainly don't want to keep this from lunch. So the last video is where it all comes together, the magic of harvest. And I guess again, it's just showing the mix of staff I have, the capabilities that they have, and how to create success for them in each of their roles. Because success creates motivation, it drives passion, and ultimately success. And that's what I'm looking for my teams across Hawke's Bay.
Kia ora, Craigmore whānau, and welcome to Harvest. Lysa, how excited are you for Harvest?
So excited!
So everything we have doing on Orchard for the past 10 months has led us to this point. As soon as we finish picking last year's season's apples, we are right into planning for picking this apples now. There's been a lot of things happening going on in the background for the past few months, all to do with harvest, plenty of training getting sorted, plenty of forecasting happening so we know exactly how many apples we're going to get off the trees. So come on, follow me and we'll take a look at what everyone's up to. So in the morning it is all go by 7:30, the boys are here in their vans, they have their shoes on, picking buckets are here, we are getting their boards sorted so they know exactly what they are meant to be doing for the day, regrouping all together so we're going to have a fantastic day of picking.
And obviously I work at Craigmore, and during harvest I'm one of the supervisors here. So pretty much I have a team of 18 who I look after, which is the Thornhill guys. My role is pretty much just checking the quality, making sure that the correct colours going into the bins, checking what they're putting in there, checking to make sure they haven't missed anything, and scanning the bins, so putting the tags on the bin and scanning them through, and assigning those bins to whoever's picking into those bins. But yeah, just really checking on that quality and yeah, making sure that we're getting the best fruit off we can and the best quality.
Hi, I'm Keith. My role this season is QC, quality control. So my main role is to firstly enter the block and make sure that the pickers are addressing all the fruit and picking the right fruit off the trees and correctly. We take a 20 fruit sample and we're assessing the fruit to make sure that there's no picker bruising. We're looking for sunburn, we're looking for pests, diseases, damage on the fruit, and basically ensuring that the quality that's going to the pack house will pack out at the highest percentage possible.
Hey, my name's Tani Sexton. I'm one of the operators here. But this year in harvest, all I'm doing is directing the traffic with our boys in the blocks, all the operators, keeping the flow of traffic going and directing them to where all our empty bins are. Saves all the looking down the rows and trying to find our half bins and full bins. It's just easier for me to walk around, keeping our traffic flowing so the teams can get to our blocks a bit quicker without getting left behind.
Hi, my name's Jack. I work at Craigmore and I'm on the tractors during harvest. And in the morning involves sort of getting the picking buckets all ready for the pickers, and then we've got to make sure enough bins are in the rows to start off with, and then just shifting the bins along as the pickers move up the rows, and then pulling the fulls out, putting them in the yard, and that's pretty much it.
Hi, I'm Logan. I'm forklift supervisor. I take care of the trucks coming in and going out of the orchard. I scan all the bins when they come into the loading bay for consignment and make sure they're all dated, tagged and ready to go to create pack house.
So there we have it, that's just a wee snapshot into what life is like during harvest time. It's pretty much rinse and repeat for the next few weeks.
So everyone knows harvest is a chaotic time. It looks like organised chaos on most orchards. Everybody in that video knew exactly what was required of them, and they weren't worried about what other people were doing. So I have a team that's highly focused, they have fun, and they achieve great results. The benefit of that is they do things very, very well and very, very cost effectively. Thank you for your time.